Morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone, depending on where you are. I hope you're well and hanging in there at these difficult times. My name is Sergio Lara Bercial, and I'm one of the minions that runs iCoachKids, a not-for-profit global movement to support youth coaches worldwide. Thank you for making the time to join us today, and welcome to issue number 4 of the iCoachKids Shares Live webinar. The picture that I'm going to show you right now, let me see if I can show you the picture, describes exactly how I feel today. Literally like a kid in a candy shop, okay? Because we have two absolute giants of basketball let me just admit a few more people, in the figure of Don Showalter and Jota Cuspinera, ready to discuss the future of the sport from a variety of perspectives. But before I introduce them, please let me take you through some basic rules of engagement. Let me show you these. Please, while we are going, keep your camera and your microphone off so I can concentrate on Jota and Don. Please, if you got any questions, please submit them using the chat function, both on Zoom, but also if you're watching it on YouTube, you can submit questions through YouTube, and we will also try and get to those. Please be respectful to all in your comments. We are here to share and learn. We don't have to agree on everything, but please, if you disagree, please do it in a respectful way. And by all means, comment on social media because we really want to share this with as many people as possible. Let me also explain how the webinar is going to run. So both Jota and Don will speak for between 10 and 15 minutes each. Then we will have a conversation, and then we will open the floor to your questions. And hopefully we'll be here for an hour and 15 minutes doing that. So with that said, let me introduce our first speaker. José Ramón Cuspinera, aka Jota, is without question one of the most admired and respected coaches in Spain. He's been coaching for 30 years, and he worked his way up from the youth teams of Estudiantes to becoming an assistant coach in the Spanish top division with clubs like Real Madrid and also with the Spanish national team, to finally working as a head coach in the top division for Zaragoza and Fuenlabrada. As an assistant coach, he's won the Spanish League, and he's also been a runner-up in the EuroLeague, as well as a head coach then being, as an assistant coach with the senior men's team for Spain, won silver at the 2007 European Championships, but also as a head coach himself, he coached teams to gold, silver, and bronze in the U16 and U18 European Championships, and coached great players like Ricky Rubio and many, many others. He is also a regular clinician with an insatiable thirst for learning and for sharing. So please give Jota a virtual round of applause. Jota, welcome to iCoachKids Shares, and thanks a million for giving your time and expertise today. Over to you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can share yours. And it's over to you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. First, I want to apologize because my English is not going to be perfect. Okay, it's not my my first language, so I may get stuck at sometimes with particular words. So just forgive me for that. Okay, I'm gonna share just my screen. Okay, so let's get there. I hope you're seeing an Earth picture down there. Where is basketball heading? This is the question that Sergio asked me to answer. Well, it's very difficult to guess the future. We don't have a crystal ball where we can read what's going to be the future, but I'm gonna just to share a few ideas of what I think the trends are, where we're heading, although everything can change. And for sure, I'm not getting into the point of all these things about the coronavirus thing, okay, which for sure is going to change a lot of things. I'm sure of that. I hope that we get back on court as soon as possible, but for sure it's going to change a few things, just like AIDS changed the way we treated the players that were bleeding on court. Okay, now this, I don't know what's going to change, but something is going to change for sure. But related to the question and thinking only in basketball, okay, one of the first things I'm aware is, are dinosaurs really dying? And what I mean for dinosaurs is the play on the low post already dying. It's our big players being important as they used to be in the game, or they're becoming less and less and less important. And probably you're thinking right now, is a small ball taking all the piece of the cake, or right now there's a still place for big guys? Okay, this is a trend that's taking place, especially in the NBA. In particular, it's teams that are competing to win the championship. Okay, it's becoming more and more usual in different teams, and well, maybe because I grew up with them, I hope they don't disappear. But for what I see, the trend is not very optimistic in that way. Okay, we like to have bigs, but bigs have to be more athletic. They're becoming they start to play more away from the rim. They kind of become players that screen and roll, but the game in the low post, I think, is dying. Okay, I hope it doesn't die all the way. Okay, it doesn't go all the way and it disappears, but it's getting less and less important for what I see in most of the trends in basketball in the world. Okay, for sure, a few years ago, we also play with two posts at the same time, two centers at the same time on floor. Right now, it's impossible to see something like that. Okay, and well, this is something that we gotta keep in mind in where we're heading. Okay, next thing related to a small ball. Okay, are we keeping basketball as a team sport, or we're starting to think of basketball as an individual sport that's played on 5-on-5? And these questions makes a lot of sense, because we shouldn't practice or develop players in one way or the other, depending on what we're aiming to. If we're still thinking basketball as an sport, as a team sport, for sure, the way we perform is going to be much different than if we think of basketball of just five guys on court where one takes all the action and it all depends on one player. Okay, and related to what I said, small ball, or just this way of more European way of playing basketball. And I think there's a huge difference between what we play overseas. Okay, but it's very important to know. And right now, it's starting to get very important for some teams, the small ball and the way they play, where one-on-one means everything. It's one playing, four looking, ready to catch up and shoot. Okay, but it's not the way of I don't know, EuroLeague way of playing, where we try to share the ball just to find a way to get the gap and to put the ball in. Okay, and it doesn't mean that one is best at the other one. Maybe I like one more than the other one, but it's not that one is better than the other. It's just a kind of taste for the game. But right now there's a trend, just for what I see, teams like the Houston Rockets, okay, playing one way of basketball that has nothing to do with what we are used to see in European leagues. Okay, so there's another point to think about it. Now, this is something that's been for the last 20 years, probably it's been the key of the question for me. Game is more and more physical. Okay, I know that always smart players have a spot in every team, for sure. Doesn't matter the age, but right now physical athleticism is getting more way important than it used to be. Okay, right now we got players that you got to be quicker, you got to be stronger, but I don't know if you got to be smarter. Okay, and this is something that, for what I see, and probably is related with the other two points. Okay, if you want to play one-on-one with four players just watching and ready to catch the ball and shoot, if you get the help and you just got to kick the ball off from where you're playing, probably this makes sense. Okay, if you want to play a kind of game where all the five players are involved, where we are all working for the same goal, then probably athleticism is important, but getting smarter is also as important as getting athletic. Okay, but for sure we don't develop players the same way if we're aiming to one goal or the other. Okay, it's different. Although for sure any kind of coach heading to any way of playing will tell you that they would like athletic players that are very smart, but it's not usually the case. Okay, usually when you got players that use their athleticism to play because they are quicker, they're stronger, they don't need to be that smart. And when you don't have those skills, those physical skills, you need to perform in another way. You gotta be more intelligent on court, just to get just to be able to play surrounded. But all those athletic players, I was thinking, because I'm a little bit old. Okay, I'm sorry for that. I was thinking on players like Larry Bird. Okay, which which were not very physical talented, but man, they were smart and they were skilled, and they were playing pretty well. They dominated the NBA even. Okay, the other one, and this bothers me a lot right now, is data going to control everything. It's starting to do it. Although right now, for what I know, big data is not present, although in technical and tactical matters, because we don't have enough amount of data to consider big data what we take from the game. Okay, but it's starting to control a lot of things in the game. And this is a quote from it's an American author. I can't remember her name. I didn't write it down, but she said something like, algorithms suppose things shouldn't change. Okay, so having this in mind, in this way, the notion we have of freedom is a real challenge. Because if we always pay attention to what data and algorithms say or tell us to do, freedom is no longer a way of doing things or having being on court. Okay, it's all gonna be driven by data, and data, it's always comparing what you're doing to what was done before, what gets results. So there's no much a big path for freedom on that way. And in my way of thinking in basketball, freedom is a very important point, but I see we're getting restricted, not only at home because of the coronavirus, because the way we're treating data. Okay, so the other one, and this is the last one for me, is the future of basketball 5-on-5? Well, now we're having something very important coming on. It's going to be even an Olympic sport. It's basketball 3-on-3, which is not played, for sure, not played on 5-on-5. We need less players to play it. And what's more important, although it's still basketball, it's not played in a full court. There are no fast breaks. It's only played in one half or half of a court. Okay, so it's another way of playing basketball. And this is something that in terms, well, it can be professional, it's going to be professional also, but in terms of the way we play, many things may change with this 3-on-3 as it gets more and more important. Okay, and becoming Olympic, it's gonna be kind of spreading the word for the whole world on the 3-on-3. So I'm very curious about where this 3-on-3 is heading in terms of how we teach basketball on schools. Okay, so those are my ideas just to debate, and I will be glad to do it after Don just speaks himself.
Jota, thanks a million. That's really interesting. Fascinating indeed to those 5 points that you raised. So Jota, we're going to go directly to Don. So Don, if you can share your screen and start your presentation, but let me first introduce Coach Showalter. Don is the head coach for the USA Basketball Under-16 and U17 national teams. He has won the USA Basketball Development Coach of the Year award an incredible 10 times. And he's won 10 gold medals at the FIBA Youth World Championships with an unblemished 62-0 record. So that's 62 wins and no losses. And he's also been a head coach at the McDonald's All-American and the Jordan Brand Game. Most importantly for us, though, Don has a great passion for teaching, sharing, and supporting other coaches. Please welcome Coach Showalter. Over to you, Don.
Thanks, Sergio. Hoda, I was very interested in hearing you speak about the pathway of basketball, and I certainly agree with many points that Hoda made here just before I came on. I think in the United States we have a lot of the trickle down effect from NBA to college to high school to youth players, and so what they see on TV is what they try to emulate then as a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old, or the coaches try to emulate that as well. So we are really focused, USA Basketball is really focused on how to develop young players at the youth age, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds, to play basketball the right way, to enjoy basketball and to stay with the game. Because we feel there's a lot of young players that are dropping out of basketball for many reasons, but the number one reason youth basketball players play the game is for fun. And when coaches take the fun out of playing the game of basketball, then they tend not to play it. So I think that's the number one reason that kids play, and I think that's where coaches should be very much at that young age to instill a love of the game. And I'm gonna take it a little different route than Hoda did. I'm gonna go from a standpoint of maybe teaching a game a little bit to as a young player, so that the young players tend to stay in the game. So let me see if I can get my screen here. Okay. If I'm Sergio, you may have to. If I'm messing up here, well, let me know.
So far, so good. If you open that document, that should do it for us. Don, you froze, I think. Right, I'm gonna take over and stop you sharing and see if that brings you back. Okay, we seem to have lost Don for a second. Let's just the internet referees have made a call against us, and we are having to deal with it. Okay. I think Don is just signed back in, so let's just wait for Don.
I think I lost you there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're just back in. We can still see your screen.
Let's take a look at this.
I think that's a frozen screen though. So
anyway, that's all right. I'll just go ahead and talk about what I was going to show. Can you see me, or is it or not?
Not at this moment. Let me see if I can take control here.
Sorry, Sergio, I'm not sure what happened there.
No, it's okay. Don't worry, Coach. Let's just bear with me a second, Don. Don't worry.
Okay.
Don, so at the moment you are showing twice on like you showing. So there we go. So that's one of you gone. So we have you back on. I'm gonna ask you to, I'm gonna request that you start your video. So your video is back on.
Okay.
And I'm gonna give you the right to be able to present your screen, and we can try that again.
Okay. Apologize for that. I'm not sure what happened with.
No problem at all.
Should I go ahead and press share screen for me, Sergio?
Before you do that, can you try opening the document that you want to share before you share the screen, just to see if that helps?
I need to get rid of your screen. It's on my desktop, so I need to condense your screen here. There we go. It's pulled up, but I don't think you can see it.
No. So if you now go and click share your screen, that should give you the option to then click on that document to show it to everybody.
Okay. On here.
Perfect.
That better? Sorry, everybody. I'm not real great with some IT stuff sometimes. So. Sergio, here's our, when we educate youth coaches, which I think are really the start. In the United States, we have so many players at a young age playing the game of basketball. We have a lot of coaches. So USA Basketball is very committed to player development curriculum. And we are very committed into progressively developing the skills. And our curriculum is based on the mastery of basketball skills. So we don't base on age or grade or gender or physical attributes, but we process the skills for an age group, and then we progressively teach it. So, for example, too many coaches that coach our young players, we feel have the wrong type of development curriculum. So many of them played professional. Many of them are dads who don't really know too much about the game of basketball. Many of them are players who played college basketball, and they try and teach a young player, 7, 8, 9-year-olds, the same way that they were taught as a college player. And what happens is that just doesn't work because the players don't enjoy the game. They're asked to do skills that are not intended for that age group, or not intended for their level of physical abilities. So we really firmly believe in the progressive development model. Now I know the international game, you have what you call the mini basket, I think. Is that right, Sergio? Where you?
That's correct. Yeah, mini basketball. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is very similar to that, but I think we have to, in the United States, we have to really emphasize that part of it. I think the international game has probably done a better job of developing young players at a young age through their mini basket programs. So we've just started this curriculum about 4 or 5 years ago. So we're on the ground floor of trying to implement the curriculum. So when I say progressive development, it would be like, we're all probably familiar with some of that. But if you ask a player who's just starting the game of basketball to dribble, dribble between the back and behind the legs around the cones, he can't do that, or she can't do that. So what happens is they get frustrated and drop out of the game. So you start with dribbling the basketball with one hand and picking the ball up, 2 dribbles and picking the ball up. And then you work into the linear piece of dribbling. And then you advance from that level. So these are the 4 levels of basketball that we think are really important. The introductory level, which is the youngest level. that is taught. This is the 7, 8, 9-year-olds have the introductory level. And this is the number one thing that we think is important to keep these players in the game, is that they truly develop a love for the game. If a young player truly develops a love for the game, they're going to stay in the game much, much longer and have more fun. And the standards that are set, such as the small ball and the lower basket, are very important in keeping kids playing the game, because they have more success with those things. So we really feel that that's important as well. So then the foundational level is a little bit, usually generally ages 12 and 13, where these skills then are taken to another level. Introductory level is more just kind of figuring out what the game is about. Foundational level in the States anyway is more about, all right, they figured out that they love the game, and now it becomes more of, instead of just a community type of basketball team, it becomes more of where can I go, where can I develop my skills the best. So this is more club teams are formed as opposed to just the community teams. And then the advanced teams are the high school level. I coach high school basketball ages 14 through 16, 17. I coached that level for 42 years. So the advanced level then is kids that are more physically, can better physically do skills. You advance the skills in a way that challenges them and also develops more overall skill development. And the last one is performance skills, which is college, and our junior national team would be more in that performance level. So that's really our 4 levels of teaching the game of basketball, and we're trying to really implement that into many of our organizations that deal with youth players. And we just feel that if the organizations, if the youth players, which there are about 6 million youth players playing, if we can get a good introductory level to them, they're going to stay in the game longer, and it's going to help the players down the road as they advance in the skills. These are the 8 skills that we think are really important to teach. And then I'll end with this one, Sergio. Footwork and balance skill, jump stops, pivots, are really important. Jay Wright from Villanova, who's won our national championship several times, if you would go to his practice at the college level, he works extensively on footwork and balance. And so that's really important. Ball handling is a skill, shooting. Screening is a very important skill. We don't recommend teaching that till about the age of 12 in the foundational level. Passing and receiving, that's obviously a skill that's overlooked, but the best teams we think we play against on the international basis are the ones that pass and receive the ball the best. Rebounding, obviously skill, and then whole offense and whole defense. And I'll go back to what Hoda said about 3-on-3. We really think the best way to develop whole offense and whole defense is playing a lot of 3-on-3 basketball. The courts opened up a lot more. We can really teach the game, and the players understand. They can really figure out things better from a 3-on-3 standpoint. Cutting, passing, spacing. So we really emphasize 3-on-3, especially at the younger level, for whole offense, and same with whole defense. So those are the 8 skills that we emphasize teaching at not only a young level, but all the way through the performance level. I would say passing is one of those where you teach the skill is not quite as technique based as shooting, but passing is really a skill that deals mostly with decision making. And so that's what you have to put into your practice as well. But the other thing I would add here before I quit is the skills. These skills are, you never graduate from a skill. In other words, you never get good enough that you never have to review the skill or go back and work on the skill. A great example is Stephen Curry, arguably the best shooter in basketball. He's not to the point where he doesn't work on shooting anymore. So he still spends time after practice making 300, 400, 500 shots after practice before he goes home. So that's a great example of somebody who has a high level of skill, but knowing they're not good enough that they don't have to continue to practice that. And I'll end with that then, Sergio.
Okay, thanks a million, Don. I'm gonna, if you can stop sharing your screen, I'll take control again. Okay. Okay, so very, very interesting presentations, really, both of them coming at the same thing from different angles. And I'm going to start by trying to bring the two presentations together slightly. And so Jota mentioned this idea of perhaps there are two different styles of basketball, one that is more based on athleticism and one-on-one, and one that is more based on a more team-oriented approach. Okay, and Don, you seem to point at the same thing when you talked about the trickle-down effect from what happens in the NBA down to the youth level. So, Don, I wonder if you can expand a bit more on what you meant by that trickle-down effect. What's trickling down, and in which ways, and what's the impact of that trickle-down effect?
Yeah, Sergio, that's a good point, because what we mean by trickle-down effect is that, for instance, if you're in the Texas area and you kids watch Houston Rockets play, that's a lot of one-on-one stuff with James Harden. So we see this happen all the time, where right now you have 8, 9-year-olds trying to emulate what James Harden does with the Houston Rockets. And so it makes it much more of a individual game and less emphasis on the teamwork part to it. So when they get to a team, when they're old enough to play on a team, they have the idea that that's how they should play: dribble, 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 step back, shoot. And so they don't understand that this is not the way that really the game is developed, or the game should be played at a younger level.
Right, and does that trickle down effect also have an impact on the coaches? I mean, are coaches coaching the game in a different way because of the influence of what they see at the highest level, or because they want to get to that higher level?
Yeah, somewhat. I think it also has to do with, our colleges and universities are so popular with basketball. The March Madness, everybody plays at that level. So high school coaches in a certain area of the country, for instance, if they're out east on the East Coast, they'll try and emulate a lot of what Jay Wright does with Villanova. And the unfortunate part is they try and emulate what he does at a too young a level. So they're taking 7, 8, 9-year-olds and try and do what he does at the college level, or even the high school level, maybe too young for what he's doing. So yeah, I think coaches sometimes get caught up in the fact that, all right, the best team is a pressing full court team, so I'm going to press with my 7-year-olds. Well, that's not how you develop players at all. And that's not how you develop a program and skill level and all that kind of stuff. So that's it does influence coaches to a certain extent, which obviously hinders the game, I think.
Thanks, Don. Jota, does that happen in Spain, for example, as well, where you're muted, Jota? Let me just mute you. Oh, you're back on, yeah.
Yeah, I canceled the micro, so no noise was coming from behind, and I forgot just to turn it on.
No problem.
Related to what Don said, here we got some kind of the same problem, okay, which is not in the term of the one-on-one way of playing, but young coaches do what they see on top level. So what they do is they end up playing set plays, close set plays, on ages where they should be playing in another way. I mean, playing a set play with kids of, 11-year-old kids makes no sense if they don't even understand the spacing first. Okay, so the first things first, okay, but it's usual to see a lot of coaches probably because of a lack of knowledge or because they don't have somebody on their side to teach them the right way. The way of learning is just imitating, okay, copying. So we imitate what we see in the top level, which is not always the best decision when we're treating with kids, okay, especially with young kids. Okay, so I don't know if the message would be try to learn in other way, or in, you know that here in Spain, we work usually in clubs, having somebody in the club that will help not only develop players, but also develop coaches. That's for me very important.
I mean, that's a really interesting point, really, both in the sense of so the culture or the structures in Europe and the US are very different, right? A child in Europe will probably spend most of the playing life as a young person in the same club. So there's a sense of development from 7, 8, 9 years of age when they join the club to 18 when they leave the club. But done in the US, they go from community club to the high school team to then the college team to then. Don, does that changing from one setting to another help or hinder the development of players in the US?
That's a great question, and Hoda hit a couple of great points as well. You know, the set plays are something that should be stricken from the playbook for 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds. There should be no set plays. I mean, you just learn how to play. You learn how to pass and cut, spacing, and too many coaches, you know, they're running horn set. They're running, all right, let's run number 2, number 3, and that just hinders the development of a player. So I just want to make that comment about set plays because we definitely feel that way. Sergio, to your point, I think our system is more fragmented. Yep. And what I mean by that is it doesn't have the clean development of a player all the way up through high school and college, because you start out at a community group, you're with maybe just your neighborhood teams and you have a dad coaching it or an older brother coaching that team. So you get some fundamentals a little bit there, and then you go more to when you start school teams at about the age of 12 years old. You start school teams, and so you have a different type. Now you're developing a player from a school standpoint, teamwork, what that high school coach wants those players to learn from there. And then you go to the high school arena where you have, obviously the high school coach has his own philosophy on how to get things done. And then you're recruited by a college team. So that's another different style that a player may be thrown into. So I just refer to it as much more kind of fragmented, as opposed to, I'm very familiar with the international, European, South American type, where you stay in a club. That's how you develop all the way through. And me personally, I think that's probably a better way to develop players. And I think that's kind of why, even though we're so physically gifted with young players, we were probably not the level of skill development that we need to be with players from around the world. And so we're trying to make a big impact with that as we develop players.
So that's interesting, Don, because I mean, for someone that has won 10 gold medals at the Youth FIFA Championships, to say that your teams have a deficit of skill when you see them play against the Europeans, can you expand a bit more on what that deficit is, despite the fact that you have a 62-0 record? And
yeah, I know that might seem a little bit odd for me to say that, but again, I think it goes back to the standpoint of so many times physically our kids can do things that maybe they don't need to develop skills. In other words, they can get to the basket a lot. I mean, very, very rarely does anybody stop us from getting to the basket and scoring around the rim. But what that does, then it it doesn't allow us to develop our perimeter shooting. And so a lot of our kids come in with the inability to really make shots from the 3-point line or the 15, 18-foot shots because they're so used to getting to the basket. And I will say that when they play top level competition, they need to, when we bring them in for our mini camps, they understand that, hey, I can't get to the basket every time against this player, so I got to develop my other skills a little bit. So I think we try and really emphasize that. All right, what can you do skill wise now if you're not going to be able to get to the basket all the time, or your physical abilities? So I think the physical abilities kind of mask over the fact that that they don't have maybe can't shoot from outside. That's just an example, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, so I mean, back to the point that Jota was making earlier about the physicality of the game nowadays, and how you're trying to create a lot of the advantages through physical prowess as opposed to technical prowess. And I'm going to come back to Jota for the next question, really, because to me, there's a really interesting, it's kind of a paradox, really. So in the modern game, to call it something, okay, and particularly in Europe, there seems like we as coaches are trying to get a really, really difficult balance between promoting and developing players that can create their own advantage, so that have a really good set of one-on-one skills, but make sure that they can apply that skill set within a 5-on-5 situation as opposed to 1v5. So Jota, I don't know, where is the balance? How are we doing that? Or are we doing that, for example, I mean, Spain has been quite successful really over the last 10, 15 years at the European Youth Championship, really, for example, and also with the senior team. How do we create that balance between really skillful one-on-one players that can play within the context of a team?
Well, I don't really know because for sure when I was saying that there's a different way of playing the 1-on-1 or the 5-on-5, as you said, playing 5-on-5 needs individual skills. Okay, you need players individually to be able, as Don was saying, yes, to rebound, to dribble, to pass, to shoot the ball, and all those things to do it right. It's not that, okay, we're playing as a team, so we can dribble in a worse way, we can be wrong when we pass, whatever. Okay, no, you need those individual skills. Probably it's a philosophy. I mean, it's while you're developing those skills, it's that the sense of learning those skills is not only to play a one-on-one, is to put your talent at the service of the team. Okay, so it's just a philosophy. And as I said, it's not that the other way, it's a worse way of doing things. It's just a whole different way of playing. Okay, so you gotta think as a coach the way you want to play. You want to play more one-on-one, just with other players just standing up, ready to catch and shoot on a kicked ball, or you want to perform a little bit more of the group game, team game, where we share the ball, but to get an advantage at a particular point. Okay, where the skills of the one-on-one will appear, just to finish or to do whatever. Okay. I don't know where's the balance. Probably the balance, it's really in all the coach's mind when we just go and practice, is being clear of what way of basketball you wanna teach. Okay, because that's the first point. Okay, you want to teach one way or the other. Okay, being clear about that point is gonna probably just lead the way where you wanna arrive. Okay, and for me, that's important. Okay, and again, it's not that one is worse than the other. It's two ways of playing.
So it comes down to philosophy, really. And when you were explaining that, I think there's also another balancing act that we do when we're coaching at these age groups, really. That again, that balance might be different for different players as well, because they all have different skills and different characteristics, really. And we may allow some players to free flow a bit more, some others we may guide a little bit more, and that kind of takes me to the next question, really. And I'm going to start taking questions now from the chat. There was a question on the chat I don't know how prevalent this debate is in the US or Spain, but certainly in the UK where I'm based, there's a debate around whether we should coach by drills or should coach more like a game-based approach. Don talked about decision making before. Again, what's your take on how should we coach? Should we use our games-based approach? Should we use a drills-based approach? Anywhere in the middle? What's your take? Jota, you go first.
Whatever. Dan,
Yeah.
you want to answer or I go first?
Go ahead, go.
Okay.
I want to hear your response.
Okay. It's I would say both. For what I do, and this is my philosophy. There's a lot of differences even inside of Spain. Okay, but when I teach through drills, I want those drills being game-based, which means it's just slicing the game in just a small pieces. So you put them into drills. Okay, and the way of, I don't know, playing a 2-on-2, okay, playing in a way where you're gonna find that 2-on-2 situation during a game, for me is the best way of practicing. Okay, it's not just playing a 2-on-2, I don't know, with no rules. Okay, it doesn't matter, you can go whatever you want. Okay, but are you gonna find that later in on the 5-on-5 game? Okay, are you gonna, I don't know if it's a kind of taste of the way I like things to be done or it's a reality. Okay, but I don't like those kind of games where sometimes they're good, okay, but where they're not related to basketball. Okay, in terms of, okay, you will find the translation how it gets to basketball. Then I say, okay, it's like if you're gonna force somebody, okay, to, when you're developing his skills through time to become a better player. Let's say when you focus, you try to focus on where defense is, where help defense comes from. Okay, you can train your eye to look different ways. Okay, but if you can do it with real defenders, why don't you train your eye to look where defenders are? I don't know if you understand this. Instead of setting, I don't know, a shirt. Yes, if I wave a shirt, you just raise your hand. Do it with defenders. When you see a defender in a particular spot, you I don't know, you raise your hand. Okay, because that's gonna be applied to the game. Okay, and it's the same way of I don't know, coaching your eye or training your eye to see things. Okay, for sure, you can do it the other way. I'd rather do it with real things, real situations during drills. Okay, you're gonna be focusing on an individual, on a player. Okay, don't let me focus on a hand. Okay, and that can be the coach that appears in a particular spot. That can be a player that appears in a particular. When this player appears on a particular spot, I don't know. You tell me. Okay, so I'm aware that you're looking at that place. Okay, instead of, I don't know, I throw a ball down there. No, we're only playing with one ball. When we're in the game, we're only playing with one ball. I'm not gonna be paying attention to another ball. Okay, I have to pay attention to 10 players. It's 9 players and me. Okay, so use what you're gonna find in games. Okay, for sure, in a way where it's fun, where you can develop particular skills, but with real situations. That's the best way of doing things for me. And I know there's a debate about this. Okay.
Thanks, Jota. Great answer. Don, what's your take on this?
You know, this question is often raised in the States, and I think it's a definite. I mean, I think it's definitely a combination. I think it depends on what age group you're coaching. If you're coaching 7, 8, 9-year-olds and all you're doing is playing a game situation, you're probably not developing skills. So I think it definitely goes to what age group you're coaching. I go back to the fact that if you're a high school coach and you're playing a dribble drive offense, and that's very popular here in the States, dribble. So if you have 2 or 3 of your players that can't dribble with their left hand very well, that dribble drive offense isn't going to be very good. I don't care how many times you play a game, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, and dribble drive. If they can't use their left hand, that's not going to be very good offense. So you better spend some time refreshing that drill. I call it refresh, or developing that skill with your left hand. Because if your players can't function in a team setting, because of a lack of a skill, then you better start working on that skill. And so that's what I go back to. But, I love Hoda's response of I think that's where at the high school ages 14 through 17, that's why I think it's so important to spend a lot of time on 3-on-3. Because I think that's really where you get your game-based operations in, your game-based skills. And then you can, all right, let's pull back here. What didn't we do well? Well, we're not rebounding real well. So let's go back and review our rebounding skills. How are we going to teach rebounding? So you're involved with the drill, you're involved with the 3-on-3 or 4-on-4 concept, and then you're picking out skills that still need work. And now let's go back and refresh those drills. So as everywhere, I think that's a big topic, no matter where you're at. So I think it's got to be a definite combination of those two, and depending on what age level.
And it is a combination, really, and it seems like the key to that combination is the knowing when to use one thing or the other and why you are doing it. Okay, understanding when they need to develop a particular skill or when they need to develop a particular understanding of the game and what to do in that situation, and when the lack of skill, as you mentioned, Don, may be taking away from their ability to play within the game, because they might understand the game but not have the skills to play within the game. And I think that's where the art of coaching is, right? That there's no recipes. You have to be observant and constantly decide or ask yourself the question of what's needed right now. What do they need right now? Okay, there's no magic recipe that you can follow from one day to the next. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
And
go on.
I'm just going to add, and the problem with that a little bit is the inexperienced coach will try and do things in all a game setting, and his kids aren't skill ready for those, so they get frustrated, and then because they get frustrated, the kids get frustrated, and then the kids don't like the game anymore. Well, I'm not going to play this game because the coach doesn't understand what I need to do skill wise to get to the level they're getting at. So I think that all kind of goes together on developing the game of basketball.
So that really takes us to the area of coach education and development, really. How do we support coaches to understand what the kids need from them and what they can give them? So in your view, and I'm going to stay with you, Don, whose responsibility is it to develop the coaches in the US, or whose responsibility should it be to develop the coaches in the US?
Well, that's a great question, because we just started with USA Basketball. We only have our youth division that was started 4 or 5 years ago. So we do have coaching licenses, which I know are very prevalent in the FIBA world, but we've just started that here 4 or 5 years ago. So we have about 40,000 coaches that are licensed with USA Basketball, and they have a curriculum to follow then. But the only thing that means is that the organization can get a background check for a coach. They get insurance, those kind of things. So, and the base curriculum, but there's still too many coaches coaching the game, and many of those have no clue as to how to coach the game, because they're never educated on it. So part of our job with USA Basketball is to try and educate big organizations on how to coach. The Boys and Girls Clubs of America, the YMCA's, the Catholic youth organizations that have a huge number. So I go out and do a lot of clinics, a lot of camps with those, just to try and give them some education. But I will say this from American standpoint, the game is 130, 40 years old. And so it took a long time for us to get to this point. It's going to take a long time for us to reverse that trend. It's very unlike soccer in the United States. Soccer came in at a base level, and they could do things from ground level up. That's not the case with basketball.
Yeah. And So Jota, in the Spanish context, really, obviously I'm Spanish as well. There is your qualifications, but there is also, from what I see now, I've lived away from Spain for 20 years now, but I can see there's still a really strong culture of coaching clinics, and but also to what extent, and there was a question in the chat from Guillermo around the idea of to what extent should the clubs take more responsibility in developing their coaches or supporting a club philosophy that every coach is operating to. What's your take on that idea of the club philosophy and the coach development within the club?
Well, I think first of all, a title is good, but it's not enough. Okay, I can get the 3 titles here in Spain in all together in about 1 month and a half. So for sure that doesn't allow me to know all the basketball I need to coach professionals. Okay, although the title lets me coach professionals. Okay, but it's the first step for sure. Attending a course and you get your title. Okay, then for me, clubs or schools here in Spain, and you know that schools work as clubs. You know our culture. Okay, the big point here is to surround your unexperienced coaches with experienced coaches. That's the way of learning. Okay, I always say, and I know it's not always possible, but the best way of learning, of developing your coaching career, is coaching a team at the same time you are being an assistant coach for an experienced coach. Okay, so you can perform your own way of doing things at the same time that you're learning from somebody that has gone through the path you're trying to go through right now. Okay, and you're lucky enough. I had a former coach with who I grew up, who said, you're like a coach is like a bride. Okay, a bride when you go on your wedding, and I don't know the English word for a veil. It's a veil.
The veil, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it's like you always have veils, okay, which they let you see through, but you don't see all what you got in front, okay? So you're lucky enough if you always have somebody on your side just lifts one of your veils and lets you see farther. The problem is that no matter how many veils they lift off, okay, there's always veils in front, okay? So you gotta keep learning. You gotta keep learning. And one thing that I'm not really bothered about, it's that you need experience to coach, but you will only get experience through time. Yeah. You cannot accelerate, which means that if I have I don't know, an 18-year-old guy that wants to coach, okay, bring him in. Okay, it doesn't matter if at first he's inexperienced. If he does not do things in the best way, okay, it doesn't matter. He will learn. Okay, and probably when he's 50 like I am, he will be better than he was when he was 18. Okay, no problems. When I see my background, when I was coaching when I was 18, man, I was doing so many things wrong. I still do things wrong when I'm 50. Okay, but it's just looking at my past. It's like don't judge, don't be too severe with the young coaches right now, because you were probably like they are right now. So just try to help them. Okay, yeah. And so that's just answering to your question. Having somebody in the club just helping those coaches to become better is, for me, the best way of doing things. Also with players, okay, because we're gonna improve our coaches, and they're the ones that are gonna improve our players.
Thank you. I have to say I agree with everything you've said there, really, and around the idea, particularly of finding that kind of mentor that is going to support you through that development process, really, because you're absolutely right. I think when we all start coaching, we're all rubbish, okay, and we have to find ways to get better. And I was saying to you yesterday, when I started coaching a bunch of 10-year-olds, I coached them as if they were my teammates, and I was playing professional basketball at the time, and that was a terrible thing to do. And I had the best of intentions in doing it, okay? Okay, so linking up with these now, there was another question in the chat around the role of competition in developing players, and what competition formats and approaches are best in your view to develop players, but also to ensure that players don't leave the game, as Don was saying before. So Don, from your perspective in the US, at the moment, the competitions that are available in the US are helping or hindering the development of players, and what would you change if you could change anything?
That's a great question. Personally, our young players play way too many games. They're playing way too many 5-on-5 games. They go to tournaments. 7, 8, 9-year-olds are playing, 50 and 60 games during a spring and summertime, and that's just too many games. So they're not getting enough development outside of those games. So they're really not improving nearly as much as they would be. So I think, that the question is, they have to find a nice balance between competition and skill development, especially at the young age. But having said that, there's certainly a piece of competition that is needed in order to accelerate skill development. So if I'm working on, let's say if you're working on dribbling, ball handling, passing, you might put that in a 3-on-3 type of game, and then with defensive pressure, now that competition, keeping score, time and score is going to enhance the skill development, because they're going to have to do it in kind of a different type of venue, and it will cause them to increase their skill level, if that makes sense. So I definitely think, and kids love competition. I mean, I coach my 10-year-old grandson's team, and they love competition. So we'll do like a ball handling drill, just even like the ball around the waist. And as soon as I say, all right, how many times can you do this in 10 seconds? All of a sudden the level goes from being very slow to really, really try and do it really fast. And so that enhances the skill development. So just little things like that, I think you can introduce as far as a competitive level. It doesn't have to be the 3-on-3, 5-on-5 all the time for competition, especially at the young age.
Perfect. And Jota, what's your take on the competition element?
Well, I agree with everything that Don said. I would say competition is part of the game. Well, it's not only part of the game. Competition is part of human beings. I mean, I remember one time talking to a father, saying that new ages are not as competitors as we were. He said, listen. You see my son. You see his two best friends here in the team. Since they were 3 years old, they were together and they were competing to see who was peeing larger. Okay, so don't tell me that they cannot compete. Okay, tell me that you don't know how to make them compete. Okay, that's another thing. Okay, so but for sure, you gotta take competition in a good way, which means I develop players to compete. That's for sure, or to increase the chances that they can compete against whoever is in front. Okay, that doesn't mean that I'm gonna force my players to do things that they are not able to do today. It's like, I remember, and let me get a quote from this Spanish film or movie, okay, that's called Champions, and it's related to handicapped people, okay? And the coach, when he arrives to this handicapped team, he gets back to the locker room and he says to the old man, "Hey, these guys don't even know how to walk. How am I supposed to teach them basketball?" Okay, and he said, "Okay, start there. Teach them how to walk." Okay, and that's for me the whole reason of the movie as a coaching point of view. You are there to improve your players, and you gotta take one step at a time. If they don't know how to walk, you teach them to walk. Once they know how to walk, you teach them to run. Once they know how to run, how they can keep the stance positions, the balance, then you give them a ball, okay? And you start doing things with the ball, okay? It's one step at a time. It's not that I'm accelerating anything, okay? And as Don said, okay, now I'm learning how to walk. I can compete walking, and it can be doing things faster or doing things well. Okay, I give a prize, I don't know, to whoever does something better, or even the prize should be given to every individual when they improve. It doesn't have to be always related to the ones we have on our side or in front. It can be also related to the way I improve related to myself, because that's the best competition I have. It's being better than myself yesterday. I want to compete with myself. If yesterday I made 3 shots out of 5, I want to make 4 out of 5 next day. And I will work for that. That's competing. That's competition. And that's something sane. Okay, that's nothing wrong. That's okay. Okay, it's insane when you just do things, and we all know what I mean, in the wrong way. Okay, when you treat competition in the way that it's not meant to be. Okay, and so competition, yeah, we got to introduce competition in the right way on practice. And for sure, if you're talking about games, we got mini basketball, as you know, here in Spain. The first thing, I would never compete 5-on-5. I know we're competing 5-on-5. On those ages, never. I wouldn't do it. I would do 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 competitions, okay? And that's enough. And probably while practicing, yeah, we're gonna play games, but we gotta perform our skills, or individual skills, okay? Again, learning how to walk, learning how to relate to the ball, learning how to dribble, how to pass, just like Dan said in his speech. Okay.
Yeah. So 2 things there. But first, Jota, I really thought that movie Champions was based in your life when I first saw it.
No.
the Spanish coach Carter. But no, really, it's a good movie if you're a coach, really. And for me, what's really amazing about this conversation is that we've got 2 guys that have won gold medals at the highest level of competition, talking about walking basketball, and really talking about putting the child or the human being or the person right at the center, and coaching to what you have in front of you, not to your idea of what basketball should look like. Second thing I was going to say there, and I think you're both in agreement, really. I saw Don nodding his head when you were talking. We have to make the game fit the child, not the child fit the game. And that's where the 2-on-2 or 3v3 in mini basketball is so important. I have a 9-year-old son playing basketball now who plays 5-on-5, which to me is just makes no sense whatsoever. And there's nothing I can do. No matter how many times I say to the people that organize the leagues, it's crazy. Put them to play cross-court 3-on-3. It's what we've always done. It's changing the culture, like Don was saying. And there's nothing harder than changing culture. So it's definitely something that we need to look into.
There's a reason for that, Sergio, in my opinion. Okay, which is at those ages when they're very young. Okay, they're selfish. Okay, they don't feel that they are integrated into the game if they don't have the ball. That's their nature. Okay, so if you play 5-on-5, they're touching the ball, and if it's well splitted, okay, 1 out of every 10 times, because you go half of the time on defense, half of the time on offense. But when you go on offense, you got 4 teammates surrounding you. Okay, if you play 2-on-2, then you have half of the chances that you're gonna get the ball. Yeah. Okay, so you're kind of playing, just like Dan said, you're fitting not the child into the game, you're fitting the game into the child. Once they start developing, growing, and they start to understand, because they receive that education at school, at home, that everything is social, that you gotta relate to the people surrounding you, and you start to understand how important is to share things. Then you can start to teach the global game. Okay, until that makes no sense. They're gonna go all for the ball. Okay, so playing 5-on-5, it's kind of weird.
It's useless. I mean, and both you and Don mentioned really that the idea that we want to develop the love for the game, and that the children have fun playing basketball and they come back. I'm going to mention one of the people watching today is Tim Brentes from the German Basketball Federation, who is a really good friend. And he has this phrase that he says all the time, that the purpose of a national governing body, a national federation or a coach, is to develop basketball citizens, people that love basketball and they will continue to love basketball as a player or as a coach or as an administrator or as a referee or as a table official. And the first time I heard teams say that, it just really clicked with me. You know, that's our job here. We're trying to develop basketball citizens, not basketball players. And some of them will be players, because that links to one of the other comments from Zoltan from Hungary, another good friend, that was saying that the competition system or the competitiveness of environments like the Lithuanias of this world or the Serbias of this world, well, those environments develop players, but how many players do they lose that end up dropping out because the environment is too cutthroat, too tough at an early age? And yes, they will, in the end, the cream rises to the top, but you're losing 90% of children that don't become basketball citizens. I don't know, Don, the competition system in the US is quite cutthroat as well, a little bit. So how does that affect all of this?
Well, yeah, I mean, the points you both made are right on, spot on. I think in the States, I think like I said before, we play too many games at a young age. I certainly agree that we shouldn't even play 5-on-5 until maybe ages 12, 13. Just play 3-on-3, have them adjust to the game. They enjoy the game so much more at that level. Some of the teams I coached, my 10-year-old team, and we'll play against another 10-year-old team that has, you know, he's playing a 1-3-1 half court trap, and you know, you're just shaking your head. Why is this happening? So I think the overall in the States, you know, the competition factor is probably too heavy at the young age, and then at the older age, of course, I think that's what you have to do to be the competitive area.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, listen, we've been going for an hour and 15 minutes. It's been incredible. I've got so much on the conversation. By the looks of the chat and the YouTube feed, everybody else has really got a lot from your participation today. I'm gonna finish quickly just by reminding people that they can. iCoachKids really has something for everybody. So if you go on our YouTube channel, you'll see over 120 videos. We've got 3 free e-learning courses for people that really want to get deeper into how to coach kids. We also have another webinar coming on next week, the Future of Football Part 2, which I hope at some point we have the Future of Basketball Part 2 as well, with Pete Sturgis and Chris van den Hagen from the Belgium FA. And I wish and I hope that people join us for that. I'm going to finish by thanking you guys, Jota and Don, for your incredible contribution. But also, I'm gonna bring it back to the analogy that Jota made with the wedding and the bride. Okay, I think today you two you lifted quite a few veils for a lot of people. So hopefully, people can see more clearly through some of the issues now. So thank you very much for being fantastic wedding organizers, really. Okay. And again, thank you so much. I will be in touch after the webinar to thank you properly. But with that, I'm going to let you go. Everybody else, thanks a million for joining in today. And please spread the word and share with other coaches. Okay, everyone, take care and have a great day and stay safe.
Pleasure.